Time is speeding up. Chaos is shifting into a new level, and we feel the pull to unlock the mysteries of the universe. Timeless spiritual wisdom offers the point of stability to navigate these times and to open our greatest potential. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the fun and knowledge of visionary best-selling authors Sri and Kira as they explore these mysteries and invite your higher love to come forward. And now, here are Sri and Kira.
Namaste.
Namaste. Welcome, everyone.
I am wisdom teacher Sri Ramka.
And I am Kira Ra, and welcome, beloved ones. We have a question for you right now. Are you an army of one? You know, today we're going to expand upon the topics that we have been sharing all month long since we've started with this, and that is, and I think we'll go with the quote from Gandhi. It's a great quote.
Beautiful quote.
And the quote goes like this: even if you are a minority of one, the truth is the truth.
And so at times in our lives it feels like we're standing alone. It feels like the tide is pulling everybody a certain direction, and you don't feel like going that way.
Yep.
It doesn't feel right for you.
It doesn't. You know, one of the things that I wanted to dive right in is there's been some buzz recently, and it was really fast and furious about a week or so ago, but it's there. It's in the consciousness. About this article, there was this woman who wrote, and they coined her to be the Godless mom. And the reason they coined her to be the Godless mom was her article essentially was about the fact that she was not part of any mainstream religion, that she did not subscribe to any mainstream religion, and that most of her friends, colleagues, co-workers, family had a real issue with that. And of course this has generated a lot of buzz, got an enormous amount of publicity. And here's the piece that I want to look at, and it was kind of fascinating, is that as much as she was trying to present her argument well, and she did, and she made some valid points that we're going to talk about and expand upon, her closing argument was essentially, the reason I know that there is no God is because God would never allow war, or God would never allow violence, or God would never allow poverty. Great questions, and there is a greater truth that was emerging there. Yet, in her own way, in her own being, she was very much an army of one in her neighborhood.
Well, there's a couple of fascinating elements that I think everyone can relate to. Let's leave aside what the argument was about for a moment and just consider the fact that here was a woman who had a belief and a way of living, an orientation that was not common in her neighborhood or her community. And what started to happen is people began to petition her, to proselytize, to try to sway her, to come back to the majority position. And that to me is where the rub lies, is that here you have a person who is living their life, is not harming or injuring anybody, that has a different metaphysical view, and here you have a larger group that's saying, this is wrong.
Yeah, well, and that, Sri, is really where we're going today, because, you know, it's, are you an army of one? The reality is and where I think this argument became so rich and ripe for the conversation we've been having, you know, if you've not checked out our show, Going Up in a Down World, check it out. If you haven't checked out our show, Post 2012 Now What? Check it out. Because the reality is that since we've entered, I want to use the word, the next phase, let's just put it that way, right?
We're in the new year.
Since we're in the new phase, the new expansion, the ascendant, I mean, there's so many labels that we're really today trying to get rid of labels. We really don't want this to be about a specific label, because it's actually labels that have created the challenge. You know, it's been the labeling that has created the environment, the congestion. And, you know, you and I were talking about this earlier, Sri, which is, when has it ever really been safe on this planet to be that army of one or not feel like you are?
Well, absolutely. So when you have an orientation that's different than the community around you, it's very difficult at times to be openly visible. It's not about trying to convince someone of whether you're right or wrong. It's just to become visible. And it's in that visibility that we attract all kinds of interactions, mostly harsh.
Yes.
Mostly harsh, because when you're a singular, when your opinion, when your point of view, when your energy, whatever it is quite singular, then you're the anomaly. You're the different one, and you're easily outcast.
Are you ever? And let's go back and look at that. I love going again back to this quote from Gandhi about even if you're a minority of one, the truth is the truth. Well, that quote came forward for Gandhi when people were saying, but it's not popular to do what you're doing. And how do you know you're doing the right thing? And there were times in Gandhi's life where everyone around him wanted him to stop because it just wasn't popular. It wasn't easy to continue what he was doing. And so I love putting that quote in context, and it's one of my absolute favorite quotes, because what is your jewel, right? You need to harvest your jewel to exist in a world that's telling you to stop. We are in a world where you must go beyond the surface. If you're dealing at the surface, if everything is at the surface level, it's going to get painful.
Well, there's that, and there's also the piece about where's your foundation. Because if you're living at the surface and you're dependent upon validation from others, exterior validation, then you're getting whipsawed in a couple of different ways. And actually, those who need external validation are the quickest to injure, the quickest to hurt themselves, and the quickest to change their minds.
It's so true, isn't it? It's really true.
But when we are foundationalized inwardly, when we have a sense of this is true, this is authentic, this is right for me, then there's a foundation that's unshakable. There's a connection to your truth, whatever that is at any given moment, because it can evolve. However, the process of being self-reliant, inwardly self-reliant in terms of what is true for you, that is the ultimate gateway to living an empowered life, to living a life free from fear.
Indeed. And the key is this. When you begin your path of exploration, whatever it is, and my heart smiles because oftentimes when we're teenagers, we naturally begin a path of exploration. One way or another, there's a moment of self-discovery. There's a moment of expansion. And it's when we usually have our first experience with people not accepting that expansion. Usually it's through our family or something we do that's outside the box. It's outside the parameters. Every family has their own set of internal rules, whether they're spoken or not spoken. We grow up in this sense of this is what I can do in the framework of the rules of my parents' house or wherever I'm growing up. So we rub up against this, but then when we expand, when we get beyond that, when we enter college, we're freer to expand more because our parents aren't sitting there. We're free of that one aspect, yet then we run into even greater societal prejudice. The reality is that worldwide, globally, without exception, this is certainly not any one country, you're noticing kind of a, I don't want to use the word, I'm going to use the word alignment, I guess is the best word to use, an alignment toward religion. This country is this religion. This country is this religion. This country is this religion. And what I think, Shri, has become so powerful right now is that the United States, which used to be known as the country of freedom of religion, is now being known as the Christian country.
Yes. And the Christians are quite happy about that.
Well, of course.
Because in God we trust. It's right on the money.
But what they're saying is in our God we trust.
And it's our version
right.
of how
and
to
our
approach.
version of God is we trust. And this is really important because even political careers and the sway of the government is all about what religion are you.
Yeah.
And I think we saw that very recently in the current.
Well, we were watching a documentary not too long ago about people in the military service, and those who are outwardly Christian get promoted, and those that are not seem to have more friction, seem to be held back.
Well, and here's what I love about that, Shri, is that also the buzz around that is that the Christians will be the first ones to say, no, that isn't true. But yet everyone who else who's in it is having that other issue.
Yeah.
And we're not saying this from a sense of judgment. I want you guys to really hear us here. What we're saying is you need to open up. And chances are if you're listening to us because you're seeking a broader view, or you're listening to us to tell us why our broader view is crazy. And either way, that's cool. We're glad you're here.
The piece of this that we really want to look at is the fact that a belief is just a belief. And in the case of the woman that you mentioned, the godless mother, she happened to she had no ability to believe in religion or God at this stage in her life. She didn't. And those that were devout Christians had trouble that she was openly atheist. So that's one example.
Well, but you know,
hang on a second. So then you have this military example. But it isn't about the content of the belief. What it's about is this person is resonating an authenticity that they, the vibrational frequency around them is one of, I'm authentically living my life. Where the others are holding a frequency of this, you are not compatible with us. Therefore, there's a projection that you do not deserve, you do not belong.
Well, that's what it is.
And that makes it very hard to breathe.
It does make it hard to breathe, and it makes it, here's the deal, and we're going to talk a lot about this in the second half of the show. Are they doing you a service? Well, let's not answer that yet, because we're going to talk about that in the second half of the show, and we're going to talk about why we've gotten to where we are. The point I wanted to make when I did the ooh-ooh a moment ago was this godless mom doesn't see herself as an atheist. What's fascinating is that because she doesn't have any other support around her, what she sees herself as is one who is free to make her own choices, but yet without any form of answer because she's yet to explore those. And that's really an important note. And the reason I think that's such an important note is because every single belief system, and we're going to talk more about this in the second half of the show as well. However, I want you to take this in, okay? There's lots and lots and lots of Christian conventions and gatherings of every sort, and I'm not just talking Christian. I'm talking all different forms of branded traditional religions, and I am painting little boxes because they all have their own little box. It's a question of how big the box is, but they have it. So you have Christian and all the subsets, right? Judaism and its subsets, Islam, all of its subsets, and other religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, all of these beautiful traditions that are designed to help you break free. Now, here's the limiting belief I want to talk about in this moment. Chances are, if you're watching Shri and I, if you're listening to Shri and I, one of the things you're doing is expanding into another level of that. And for some of you, that might be more of a New Age orientation or a metaphysical orientation or a religious science type organization. But the reality is this: within all of those institutions, because they've become institutionalized, is also judgment and a paradigm. When Shri and I broke free, and I want to go back to when we released Atlantean Revelations, which is being re-released on Kindle, coming up soon, get it. This book had so much profound breakthrough information that it literally polarized a lot of the metaphysical community who said, can't go there. This is just can't go there. And then there was the other part that said, we're ready for the next step. And I think this is important to realize because in the beginning we were the minority of one, but the truth is the truth.
Well, we were offering our material in our workshops primarily at that time in what would have been called the metaphysical or the New Age community, because our message was most compatible with their belief systems. And what we learned is, as we began to offer the message and be with, is that we were being judged as different.
We were labeled, I kind of like the label, I must admit, but we were labeled spiritual renegades. And I was like, okay, I can live with that, because if you don't invite people to grow, and this is what happens in most of the traditional New Age or metaphysical communities, and they're awesome. I'm saying it's a great first step, but as with any other religion or organized entity, it's a step. The reality is that we're at a point where I know that you are ready for more. You know that you're ready for more, because it doesn't really matter what I think, it doesn't matter what Shri thinks. The reality is that our world has expanded beyond a place it has ever been before. What's fascinating is that ever since we lost 2012 and we've moved into 2013 and beyond, people are asking more questions, are more confused. It's kind of like that, I was ready, geared up for 2012, that's gone, it's over, now what? Right? Where do I go?
There's that sense, and there's this kind of coalescing gravity happening between the wars and the dramas and the fears of the world. And so we have those that were awakening, those that were kind of dancing in the light a little bit more, beginning to feel less certain
Yes.
about
yes.
their path, and those that are more in the mainstream, whatever country's mainstream that might be, seemingly coalescing around a point of view, becoming a little bit more rigid,
Yes.
a little more dogmatic.
Yeah.
And so these two energies are bouncing on the planet. And before we go to break, I want to remind you of something that's been really meaningful to me, and that is from Archangel Zadkiel, who said something along the lines of, all paths are perfect, all beings are finding their way home.
Indeed.
And if you, no matter what religious faith is working for you at this time, is nourishing your soul at this time, does it not make sense that the Creator would have imbued the call to come back in all of the children,
Yes.
not just some?
It is so true. And you know, Sri, we opened with a Gandhi quote. Why not close this segment with another Gandhi quote, which simply is, there are as many religions as there are people. And indeed there are. And so we're going to explore that, how you as an army of one are being called, what you can do, and how easy it can be to live this way or not. Stay with us. We have a lot to share.
Namaste, beloved one. This is Kira Ra, and I am inviting you to take a journey of the soul in the land of the heart. Imagine your life free from chaos and filled with creative clarity. Imagine waking up each day in your private lakefront casita, greeted by brilliant sun, flowers, and birds. It is here that you will effortlessly resurrect your divine blueprint in pristine energy. Yes, I am inviting you to join us for a personal resurrection vacation.
Welcome back. We're glad you're with us.
We sure are. And we're discussing, hey, are you an army of one, and how does it feel to be an army of one in today's world? And what does that really mean? And, you know, Sri, right before the break and in our first half of the show, we were talking about all the ways that the countries are kind of lining up. And, you know, one of the comments that I hear a lot of people say anymore is, I'm afraid to let people know how I really think, or I'm afraid to say something because
Or you don't know where I work.
Right,
You
or
know, yes.
they're worried that the government is listening, or that they'll be, you know, with this whole new Patriot Act and being able to be arrested for anything and whatever, people are terrified of,
Don't
you
grow
know,
rotten low.
God forbid, you know, if you think I'm some kind of terrorist because my views are different. So there's a lot going on. I mean, there's a
No,
lot
that's true. It's true.
to
Now,
navigate.
a lot of people are being hurt and unjustly ostracized or interfered with. And this communication today is about helping you to find your personal empowerment, to live with a sense of peace about who you are. You know, the climate changes, the weather changes, the social conditions around us will change. And what is really true is much more durable than that. And so as we begin to find a higher order of truth, it's necessary that we start tapping into what we call quantum space, that we start accepting a more ascended energy as our way of being. Because it's the dense frequencies that are easily manipulated. Now, when I say dense frequency, I'm talking about public opinion, I'm talking about the friction of and magnetism of mass opinion. Have you ever been out in a crowd, especially a political crowd, or even the anonymous movement when they were sitting occupying Wall Street? There is a magnetic influence in being part of the group.
And there's even a polarization.
Yes.
You know, I was thinking about how some of the people, it was funny, I saw a thing the other day, and they were discussing how part of the people were saying, well, if Martin Luther King were alive today, if Martin Luther King were alive today,
right.
well, Martin Luther King's right-hand man showed up and wasn't even allowed to speak, who could have actually told them what Martin Luther King was thinking today. So it's really a powerful trap, and this is what we were talking about in the first half of the show. There is this trap of wanting to be and feeling safe as part of that groupthink movement, even if you're, and usually often because you think your group is the group.
Right. And so it begins with you, knowing what feels true in you, paying attention to what is bubbling up. You know, it just as many people, gosh, how many times does this repeat itself, where a soldier or a policeman or a sheriff or a corporation person is told, follow orders,
right,
even though those orders are not right for them.
Okay, I got to interrupt here. How about what just happened with the dairy?
And the seizing of it was several tons of cheese.
8 tons of cheese, because they were made with raw milk. Not only did they seize the cheese, they shut down a family farm.
They destroyed a family.
Destroyed this family. They've been in business for 30 years. There was nothing wrong with it. They've been selling this cheese for 30 years. But when did it become too challenging to offer yourself a good food, to offer people a wholesome food? And, you know, it's the whole thing, Sri. We really need to do a whole show on this. We really do.
There's that's a topic.
And we will get there, I promise you.
And the piece that I would really love to be able to communicate clearly for each of you today is that no matter who you are, when you take a stand that is true for you, you're stepping out of the woods, you're stepping out of the mass consciousness, and you will be greeted by those who say how wonderful, you are so beautiful in your stand, and you'll be greeted by those who want to destroy you.
Now, you know, I have to say right now, Sri, because that was such a beautiful way to share it, go to our website, shriandkira.com, click on the Archangelic Messages that are free, go to the Lost Books of the Essene, I believe it's book 5. And the name of the book is A Lion Steps Out of the Woods, and you are that lion. But the key is, how do you maintain your lionness, right?
How do you become the true king of this jungle,
and,
your jungle?
We mentioned in the first half of the show that we were going to offer you a way to navigate this. So let's begin. The first thing is this, and I can offer it to you, we can offer it to you in steps. And it's really basically 4 steps. Step number 1 is this. You must release all sense of time, meaning you have to step into quantum space. You must release all sense of time, because if you stay right here in this timeline and you allow these items to be projected onto you, you won't be able to see the greater good.
So stepping out of time includes not trying to do battle with those forces that are after you.
Exactly. So step number 1, step out of time. And you know, you might say, well, gosh, Kira, that's huge. How do I do that? You know, you can do that simply by sitting and breathing and going to that wide angle lens. You know, I always like to describe it as open your lens like a camera, go from zoom to wide angle, and you always see more. And that's one way to step out of time. Now, of course, if you want to learn how to do that more, come join us in Guatemala. We're going to be offering quantum immersion, and in our quantum immersion, we actually teach you how to step out of time and how to actually connect with your future self, your past self, your current self, how to connect with all of the energy around you to harness it into this moment right now. And that brings us to step number 2, which is create every moment to support you. Create every moment to support you. Now, what does that mean?
Part of it is looking for the support that's there. Instead of, again, looking at the conflict, looking at the seemingly opposing energies, what is behind the fabric of that? What can you read between the lines, so to speak, and find the support that is already there?
It's a really important one, because when you create every moment to support you, it also means, you know, something as simple as your own home, right? That's your sanctuary, or is it? Make sure your home is your sanctuary. Make sure everywhere your eyes look, you see things that support you. Find literature, find people, find information that supports you. And that brings you to step number 3, which is trust yourself, trust yourself, trust yourself. Should I say that again?
I think they got it.
Okay.
When we say trust yourself, we're not talking about my way or the highway. What we're talking about is you're relying on your inner compass, and you're willing to take a stand based upon it. And your stand, your truth may evolve, it may mature as you practice this inner reliance. But if you fail to trust yourself at the beginning, how will you ever trust yourself?
Exactly.
It begins with the leap of faith, saying, I choose to trust myself.
And you know, even if you are that army of one, if you follow these steps, it leads you to step number 4, which is live your truth. And the way that you live your truth is by making sure that in living your truth, it always leaves another feeling uplifted. It always leaves another feeling good, and it always leaves another with a sense of expansion. And you know, one of the most beautiful ways that was ever put was by Archangel Zadkiel, and it's in our book, Sacred Union, The Journey Home, which if you have not read, now more than ever, this book is in its next printing. Go get a copy of Sacred Union, The Journey Home. If you've not read it, get it. Because this is such a profound book for this moment in history. And it's also the basis of our Navigating the Inner Matrix program. And one of the things that Archangel Zadkiel said in there was, you will always know when information is of the highest, when it is of the Elohim, because it will never harm, and it will always uplift. And so when you recognize that you can easily live your truth, what will happen is this. So let's say that you've been one of those people that's tried a lot of things, right? Which most of us have. We have life experience, we've tried a lot of things. I would suspect you have people around you that go, oh, she's doing that again. Oh, they're off on another tangent. Oh, give them a couple weeks, give them a couple months, they'll stop. The key is, when you follow these 4 steps, when you implicitly step into the quantum immersion of your own divine nature, and you live your truth every day, and you live your truth with passion and with ease and with grace, if you allow yourself, even if for the time you are that army of one, the truth will prevail, and eventually those people come back to you and go, hey, what are you doing? You look good. You know, you're looking different. You're not aging, or you're looking healthier, or you're happier. What are you doing? That's how you inspire the world to change. That army of one becomes an army of 2, becomes an army of 3. Not through your words, but through the way you live your life.
The way you live your life is an expression of energy. It's an expression of your self-trust. It's an expression of the love that emanates because you're not judging others. You're allowing them to live their truth.
Yes.
And you know how they say that light is both a wave and a particle?
Yes.
The particles argue with each other. The waves penetrate and flow.
I love
so
that.
Quantum space is tuning in with the wave, the frequency of who you are, that's connected to the past, to the future, to other timelines. And when one begins to open to quantum space, we begin to expand our sense of security, our sense of self, and our magnetism, our ability to manifest particles.
Yes.
And this is indeed the next step for so many people, and this is why Kira and I are so delighted to invite you to join us to learn more about this, to discover the truth of this for yourself.
Definitely. Come to quantum immersion. It will make a difference in your life. And remember this, beloved ones. If you say, gosh, you know, I still have this one or that one saying this or doing that, bring your hand to your heart, take a deep breath, go out of this time, right? Step number 1, and you thank them. No matter what they've said or done, thank them, because they're playing their role perfectly. Their presence in your life is inviting you to step out, to start that 4-step process.
Yes.
You may be an army of one in your neighborhood, but I can assure you, you are not an army of one in the universe.
And what if the first words out of your mouth in any conversation were simply, thank you?
Thank you. Thank you. I love that. And we thank you for joining us today. And my beloved angels, until we continue this conversation, and believe me, we have a lot to say, we honor you, we respect you, and may your heart know that all is truly well.
Thank you for joining us today for 2012 Higher Love. Remember that you can find out more about Sri and Kira by going to SriandKira.com. That's SriandKira.